Hello, I'm the Angry Spork. Regularly facing the worst kind of criminal scum can be a trying experience, I would assume. Some protagonists may be very steadfast in playing by some set of rules, especially if they're, say, a cop. Then you have those that are okay throwing reluctance away like a used coffee filter and mowing down the bad guys because they think it's fitting punishment. I'm taking issue with Witchblade / Punisher, wherein Lara Croft's bestie has a run-in with Marvel's premier gun enthusiast. Let's see if this comic makes us want to turn the page or turn our heads. The cover is a mixed bag for me. In the foreground, the two characters are showing off how good they are at brushing their teeth. Maybe this started out as an argument about whose dentist was more proud of them, while Sara grabs the far side of Frank's coat, which feels like an odd tactic even when the Witchblade is at the ready. Feels like the other side would have been an easier grab. And they seem colored in a way that seems almost acrylic, but not poorly done. I do like the background image, though, with the symbiont clawing at the skull logo. In fact, I think the cover might have been improved if they went with the simplicity of just that image. Though then you'd get certain readers joking that the main leads are getting frisky and this is just foreplay. Written by Ron Mars, with art by Adriana Mello and Annette Kwok, we get a quick recap on the players of the story, Detective Pezzini and her battle-hungry gauntlet, and Frank Castle's war on crime after the mob killed his family.
Oh, Fat Tony.
What? What did I do?
We open a room full of crates, some targets that have seen some use, and oodles of guns and ammunition.
You're pretty heavily armed for caterers.
We took the subway.
You're pretty lightly armed for the subway.
There's also someone's mugshot and a dossier with a combat knife stuck in it. Next! Is it just me, or has the DMV gotten really aggressive these days? We go to a large truck driving along a dirt road, interrupting a raccoon's roadkill feast. The occupants have been driving for a while, one of them getting restless, with an hour yet to go as they take the back roads. Though if they'd used the thruway, they'd have arrived at their destination already. How'd I let you talk me into this? You have a weak mind. And I offered you Twinkies. Well, that's just pathetic. Now, if they had been chocodiles, that'd be a different story. In the back of the wagon is Sara Pezzini and her partner / love interest Patrick Gleason, transporting a prisoner cloak and dagger style, which, given his size, the latter wonders if it's even necessary. Kinda hard to keep Frankenstein Jr. here inconspicuous. Still, not as conspicuous than how he looked a few months ago. The large gentleman they're escorting to a supermax prison is Josef Scala, a gangster that's turning state's evidence necessary for prosecutors to put away some Russian mobsters. If word got out he was giving the only testimony to make that happen, his associates would be looking to put him 6 feet under. He's got nasty enemies and worse friends, Gleason. Their game nights playing Pictionary and Scrabble are the stuff of nightmares. Not sure why Gleason is calling him Brunt, because he looks nothing like a Ferengi. Anyway, the prisoner is delighting in the deal he's made, but is curious why cute little thing like Pezzini was sent to look after him, and she figures it's because she arrested him, and the department may have thought she'd pay extra attention. But she subtly caresses the Witchblade while stating she can also take care of herself. That's when they feel the transport slowing down. Well, I've seen enough crime dramas to know where this is going. Someone either found a dead body or is about to become one. If it's the first, it's an episode of Bones. If the second, Castle. According to one of the officers in front, a dead tree seems to have fallen into the road, and they go to clear it out. A concerned Gleason offers to help, but they figure they can use a scattergun in case this is someone's trap. A second officer in the front gives an ominous look before aggressively shutting the visor, while the detectives and the criminal wait for this brief delay to conclude. What is your phrase? I have got time to kill? You think of that one all by yourself, did you? Was workshopping different joke in head. If tree falls in woods and no one around to hear, does it make acquittal for horrible crimes? Now you see why I go with time to kill. Could not fine-tune zinger in time to be punctual. When they start moving again, Sara asks what made the bruiser decide to testify, if perhaps it was death by lethal injection that got him to rethink the old honor among thieves standard. In truth, was offered Twinkies. And she also calls him Brunt. Seriously, why? I mean, look, there's zero resemblance here! The trip starts getting a little bumpy, and Pezzini finds they've gone off-road. Like, middle of the woods off-road. The prisoner insists he had nothing to do with this, honest and for truly, when they stop. The back door opens to reveal the Punisher, a weapon at the ready. End of the line. Beginning of my Thomas Jane movie marathon watch party. You're all invited! Gleason cites regulations prohibiting carrying weapons in the back of a prison transport, but Frank marks him as the kind of NYPD cop that'd be fine breaking certain rules, and the detective hands over his gun, and also mentions it having sentimental value, which probably means something to an avid reader of the Witchblade title, and not me. Sara says she's not carrying, for real, and her nasty glare is evidence enough for Frank.
I'm gonna go ahead and give you a pass because you have murder eyes.
Under the light of a moon too big for reality but too small for comics, Punisher has taken them to a disused barn, having knocked out the drivers and left them with nothing worse than headaches. He then has the detectives cuff each other with zip ties, to Gleason's objection, but Pezzini tells him to go along, since it's obvious the vigilante is after the prisoner. You intend to kill him? No, they call me the Punisher because I'm going to give him a good talking to. Though one time I actually did literally lecture a man to death. Maybe not the most popular TED Talk, I'll admit. Castle unlocks the prisoner's chains from the vehicle and leads him outside, though he doesn't seem to think this will go the way the anti-hero expects. He leads them all into the barn, wanting to keep an eye on the cops, who share a quick look. Inside, Frank is quick to kick the guy to his knees and is about to just get this over with, until Sara urges him to stop, because he can put away a lot of Russian mobsters. Castle doesn't think that should earn him a free pass. Yosef Skala, Russian national. What? No! Name is Brandt, like detectives been saying. I'm liquidator for Ferengi Commerce Authority. Figured was worth a try. Frank gives an abridged version of his rap sheet that he's been an assassin for several organizations, not just the Russian mob, linked to a minimum of 87 murders. 109. Ordinarily would not confess, but I pull all-nighter to take out bus full of nuns with rare blood type who are on way to blood bank. Wow, when I say out loud, I sound like a real bag of scum, don't I? Still think he deserves a cozy cell in max security where he can watch HBO all day? Well, they rigged it so the only show he gets is Real Time with Bill Maher. They still wanted to punish him somehow. Pezzini says cops swear an oath to uphold the law, and don't stand by while someone is murdered, even if that someone might deserve it. By the way, this was printed in 2007. Just throwing that out there for context. Castle asks how she thinks he discovered the transport truck, on which route, implying he had inside help from cops that prefer the mobster in a casket, not a cell. I want a condo on Central Park West. Doesn't mean I'm gonna get it. Though I imagine if she did, the phrase, "who'd you have to kill to get this place," would make this present moment vibe a little differently. She activates the Witchblade, which frees her of her restraints, and says that if they start killing killers, it makes the good guys and bad guys more difficult to tell apart. She frees Gleason as Frank aims and fires, saying he doesn't mind making a second corpse. Pezzini isn't buying, suggesting that his aim can't be so bad that he misses all those shots, and might be more concerned about who he shoots than he suggests. You go ahead and depend on that, he tells her after giving a massive slap to her face. I'm not kidding. Look at the size of his hand and compare it to her face. Living space gauntlet or not, that's gotta sting. Gleason returns with the shotgun from the transport vehicle, not needing to be an expert marksman to take the vigilante out. This does get Castle to drop his weapon, but was distraction enough for Yosef to break his chains. His attack on Sara is interrupted by the Witchblade, but her partner is distracted just enough that Frank gets the drop on him. Skala begins realizing the detective is more than she seems, as the blade starts coiling up his arm and begins throttling him. But Sara pulls it back, still wanting him alive. You filled up on demons before the car ride. There is no way you're still hungry. In gratitude, the killer, surprisingly, decides to kill her, knocking Sara back, dazing her enough for him to get his hands around her neck and start reminiscing about murdering a woman that resembled the cop. The Witchblade begins encompassing his arm in defense, but a gunshot rings out, leaving him with less of a cranium than he had before, courtesy of an unrepentant Punisher.
This isn't the way!
Look, the sad fact of the matter is, you can't solve every argument by referencing the Mandalorian. I've tried, and it got me banned from Starbucks. Sara intends on bringing Castle in as the blade begins wrapping around him, so he counters with Gleason's sidearm pointed at her. Maybe he thought it would pierce the living armor she's covered with, or maybe it was to get her mind on her partner as she asks where he is. He suggests he might have a concussion, maybe a nasty one, and thinks she should check on him. She turns around and does just that, confirming that he's okay. I'm assuming through an ability of the Witchblade, or something. She turns back to Frank, saying she can stop him because she's a cop and he's a murderer. He claims he's a soldier in a war, and so is she, even if she won't admit it. Her way, leaving Yosef live, could have seen him break out and kill again, costing innocence over her moral superiority. His way prevents that from ever happening. Though it also costs prosecutors their one path to locking up a bunch of other criminals who will continue to cost innocent lives, so your logic kind of falls apart right there, Frankie boy. However, he suggests that if Pezzini truly thinks he's got it wrong, he dares her to stop him. The comic ends with the Punisher fading away into the shadows, leaving Sara looking rather conflicted as she retracts her symbiont. That was Witchblade / Punisher, and while I'm not a follower of either character, it was a well-written story that is certainly going to be divisive. I didn't know anything about the story when I stumbled across it looking for crossovers to review. It seemed like kind of an obscure pairing to me, but hey, one might say the same thing about another Mars-penned crossover. This one-and-done story takes place in a universe where these characters just exist together. Unlike other crossovers, this feels much more subdued by comparison, like this could have been an issue of either character's title, but with some replacement or pastiche to keep things in universe. I don't know if, in her own title, Pezzini is the kind of cop that would let someone like him walk away. It implies she's giving serious consideration to what Frank said, and maybe her devoted readers would have a different opinion. She had a similar clash with Lara Croft when she took out a couple of killers, but she didn't seem very keen on bringing her in, though the goons she killed weren't in police custody, nor key witnesses, so that likely takes some of the sting off. I suppose the only alternative ending to this story is that Sara does arrest Frank, and he somehow escapes while she's tending to Gleason. That at least would preserve Pezzini's integrity, if everyone thought letting him go was out of character. Which, of course, brings us to the big debate this comic brings up. Law and order versus the instant gratification of living out revenge fantasies. Despite me personally thinking this felt out of the blue, pairing these two up felt as good an idea as crossing Frank over with Batman, and actually gives us a much clearer clash of ideologies. Neither lead has to exposit their backstory or dramatically justify who they are. The events as they unfold present the debate as much as the dialogue. Scala is a murderer 100 times over, but his knowledge would make prosecuting some of his old associates much easier, so he's given a life sentence instead of the death penalty. Though real-life studies show the former is much more economical than the latter, but I digress. Castle acts as a bipedal id, going for instant gratification, something basic and simple from his point of view. Yosef literally killed more people than Frank knew, and the possibility of him doing it again made his choice all too clear. Prevent those possible deaths. Don't risk any more lives at the hands of someone that clearly enjoyed his work. Sara admits to thinking that some might deserve to die, but in this case, it's for the greater good that the guy lead to the arrest of other criminals. She's not numb to those feelings or compulsions, but she believes in the law and won't let herself cross that line. Perhaps this is best exemplified by restraining the symbiont. It's not just the entity she's telling no, it's herself. So what are we to make of letting Castle leave? Does she really think on some level that his approach is right? Is she too ethically conflicted? Maybe she doesn't want to leave Gleason's side. Is she paying him back for saving her, even if she might not have needed saving? I suppose that's up to the reader to decide, since it's not like the comic is going to change anyone's minds, just have two different methodologies lock horns. However, some may view it as Pezzini agreeing with the Punisher on some level. While it may grant a certain primal satisfaction as a concept, Frank Castle's methods aren't supposed to be glorified or emulated.
That sounds so adult.
I mean, I'm ticked off about big real-life stuff too. Outside my whole routine of snark at poorly written comics and get mad over insipidly dumb reinventions. Who thought this was a good idea? What antipsychotic meds did they skip for months to think this was anything other than a steaming pile of... Ahem. Anyway, I understand how killing the killers seems like the best solution. It's like a guarantee they won't do it again. But like Sara said, when anyone, especially cops, indulge in that base desire for vengeance, it begins diluting the difference between those out to protect and those out to destroy. That is why heroes are at their best when they hold back from killing, when they hold life sacred, even if it's the life of someone that has done terrible things. As tempting as it might be to imagine oneself as the lone wolf, taking out people we deem necessary because of an alleged crime, it may be more selfish than we might initially think. Rather than letting the law take care of Scala, Frank is doing things his way, so he knows it's taken care of. So you have to wonder if it's really about the victims of this assassin, previous or hypothetical, or if it's just Castle hyper-rationalizing unchecked killing to try and numb the pain of his own loss. Ignoring the guarantee of due process doesn't make a good guy more pragmatic or better. It risks creating a villain that just thinks they're the hero. Okay, so the review got a little heavy, so to lighten the mood, here's an old man dancing in a diaper. Now, Frank heavily implies that he had help from inside the police department to track down Yosef's transport. I got to wondering about this scene here, a guy that gives a scowl before shutting the viewing window. I'd swear that this was supposed to be Castle, dressed as one of the drivers. Maybe it is, but he seems to be the one talking about Big Red with familiarity. So was that him putting on an act, making it sound convincing, or was this just a driver in on the Punisher's plan, and any visual similarities are mere coincidence? There isn't exactly any follow-up on the cops that tipped him off, so it's anyone's guess. Not sure why the assassin was called Brunt before being formally identified. Maybe it's a cop's slang, or has to do with him being Russian. I liked the art. It was nicely detailed without any serious problems, and nothing felt confusing or lost in the background. Also, the Punisher skull, juxtaposed to a sickle, both traditional symbols of the specter of death. Don't know if that was intentional, but I kind of doubt it's coincidental. It's a solid story that may not be the biggest of the flashiest, and while I don't follow either character, I thought it was pretty good. How it raises certain questions, or how some answers may be ambiguous, your mileage is quite likely to vary. I'm the Angry Spork. Man, have I got issues.